Hey there, hi there, everybody. It is Robert, and it is today. Oh wow, just in time here. Let's see what we'll get to do. That'll work. We are going to be doing DocuSign. It is 11 a.m. on the 4th, which is the 5th. It's the 5th already. Holy cow! And we're going to be talking about DocuSign today, and we're going to be going over the intro to DocuSign. So we're going to be starting off at the scratch base level here, and we're going to go through all of the cool things that you can do in DocuSign. As always, welcome. I am Robert Vincent, and I am your Market Center technical trainer. So what that means is I'm your technical trainer. Glad to have you here with me. Thanks, John.
That makes a lot of sense, Robert.
Well, I'm here to please. I got all the answers to all the questions.
Yeah, good guy.
All right. So we're going to be going to take a look from the ground up on DocuSign. Now, when we talk about that, we're going to be talking about the connections, setting things up, getting things ready, and working with an opportunity, pushing it through to DocuSign all the way through. I'm going to try and finish out an envelope today. I think I should be able to get through it. I'm not going to spend too much time down in the weeds. We're going to go straight through. And so with that said, let's go ahead and get started here. So the first thing that we're going to do, and I'm going to go ahead and share the full screen here with you guys so that you can see that. And let me make sure that, okay, good. The both sides are coming up just fine there. All right. So what we have here is you're looking right now at the command homepage, which is agent.kw.com. And we're going to start here as we always do. And I'm going to go over here onto the left-hand side, and we're going to start in the contact area. Now, before we actually get into the contacts and working with them, I am going to kind of leave this page here, and we're going to talk about how Command and DocuSign talk to each other. So the first thing that you want to know is once you're connected, everything's going to be everything in Command with DocuSign is connected via the contact. So everybody in here is going to be how you're going to start accessing DocuSign to set up your transactions. But before we do anything inside of a contact, let's jump over to the settings area. And I'm going to jump into the settings area by clicking on my profile icon in the upper right-hand corner and clicking on settings. Now, when the settings page loads up here, what you get is a whole bunch of integrations listed here on the right-hand side. And you can see that mine is currently set up as DocuSign. And I also have .loop. Both of those are showing a status of connected. So both of those two signing software tools are connected. Now, I can't show you the reconnection process in my database because my database is already hooked up and I have it already connected. So what I am going to do, though, is on another tab over here, I'm going to jump into answers.kw.com. And quite literally, answers.kw.com. And I'm going to do a search for DocuSign setup. Okay, DocuSign setup. Okay, so it says getting started with compliance and commissions in Command. And then down the next one here is get started with DocuSign. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this little guy right inside the chat box here. For all of you who are in the, the Zoom room. And I think I can do the same thing on that computer over there. Let me see what happens. Yes, it does. Excellent. So I'll pop that over there. So you guys have access to both of those as well. So the workflow and connecting your DocuSign account is all basically on the left-hand side here. You have a bunch of stuff here. And I'm going to come over here to create and connect your DocuSign account in Command. And this page here, and I'll go ahead and throw this one in the chat as well. Why not? We'll be super bonus with our links and stuff. So I'll pop that over there. Good. Okay. So now on this page here, it does walk you through. And by the way, this information is available in the LMS as well. So it's not just on answers.kw.com, but you can go into our LMS and look for the setup for DocuSign, and you can get that. So when you come into this particular view here, you'll notice that it says to go down to your profile, go down to settings, and in the settings area, you'll have a button that says connect account for your DocuSign. When you click that connect account, if you haven't done it already, you'll have it as a nice green button there to click. And you're going to need to know about this little guy right here. The email address you enter here is a key part of your DocuSign identity. It is recommended that you use your @kw.com email address, but it is not required. I do recommend that you do it, and it is not required. Then what you're going to do is you're going to sign up for a DocuSign account. Now, most of you have already done this, but I'm going through it. This is an intro to DocuSign class, so I realize that some of you are looking at going, Robert, I'm already past this. That's okay. This is the beginning of the month, so we restart these classes, and you get to kind of get through it from the very beginning. So the next thing you'll be presented with is basically signing up and getting your registration email. Once you've signed that up there with your first name, last name, and password or email address, you'll send a registration email. When you get the registration email in the same email address that you just put in there, it's going to say accept the invite, and you're going to be presented with an activate your account screen where you're going to be requested a password. You're going to put a password in there. You're going to create that. And it's also going to ask you a password question. What is the name of your pet, your mother's maiden name, that kind of stuff. After you activate that account using this button right here, you're going to see an accept agreement. And there is the DocuSign consumer agreement right there. If you want to read through that, you can. Otherwise, just go ahead and click accept the agreement. And then it's going to take you back to Command. Once you come back into Command, you're going to have a new button over here that says Authorize. And essentially, the first part that you just did is creating the DocuSign account. This second part is where you connect Command to that DocuSign account. So you'll click Authorize here, and then another box is going to pop up to ask you to sign into your DocuSign account, your brand new account. The email address should already be up here, and then you'll just put in the password that you just created. And you'll click Login. Again, you'll need to agree to the connection between KW Command and DocuSign, allowing those two to talk to each other. And you'll click Accept, and then you're basically done. So that little walkthrough right there, I put the link into the chat for the Facebook and also for you guys here in the Zoom room. And that should get you connected. Now, once that's connected, I'll jump back over to Command here, and you can see that you will see a disconnect account option here instead of a connect account. And now you are connected. So there you go. That's how you actually make the connection for your DocuSign account. Now, once that's done, I usually do a little bit of a quick test to make sure that the entire system is functioning. And I'm going to do that test with you now, showing you all the way through from A to Z. Literally, we're going to walk through the entire process of creating well, we're going to use an existing contact, but we're going to do a contact. We're going to do a transaction, an opportunity. We're going to connect that opportunity to Command, to DocuSign. Then we're going to walk through the DocuSign process together. So we're going to come over to the contacts area, which is where we started. And as I mentioned, this is where once you're connected, this is your starting place. So you're going to go into your contacts, and you're going to either locate a contact that you have already in your database that you're going to start this transaction with, or you're going to click the Add Contact button in the upper right-hand corner that will create that contact for you. Either way, when you get done creating the contact or when you've selected your contact, you're going to open that contact's card. We call it a contact card here. On the contact card, when it finally decides to finish loading up for me here, there we go. Once we see the contact card, we're going to see, and I'll refresh this because it seems like it forgot to put that guy's name in here. There we go, a little better. Once you see the contact card, the information on the left-hand side is the details about the contact, and the information on the right-hand side is your timeline, your activity, or your history with this contact. So what we're looking for here is to make sure that we have a phone number, that we have an email, and there's a lot of things that we want to have in here. And when you join me next week in the Command 101 series, next week we're going to be doing the contact card. We're going to talk about this entire page for an hour. We're going to go through this whole page. But for now, I just want to remind you that you can have your addresses, Birthdays, home anniversaries, relationships, all those different things can be in the contact card. But the most important thing that we need to have is, in fact, this email address. So always double check before you begin a transaction that you have the most up-to-date, valid email address for your contact, because that is what we're going to be using on the DocuSign documents. Now, another thing to talk about here, and it's extremely important, is the name of the contact. It sounds so simple. It's the name of the person. But you would be surprised how many people, how many agents are creating a contact. That's literally what we're creating. And they put a business name in here. They'll put in, such and such LLC, or they'll put a property address in here, 123 Main Street. And they think that that's okay because it's how they recognize that particular activity. They're thinking of it in terms of like a transaction. So I think of my transactions based on addresses. Well, that's all great and fine and dandy, but that is absolutely a no-no. We do not want anything but a person's name in the contact name. As a matter of fact, the button says create contact. It asks you for a name of a person, not an address, not a business, not a trust or anything like that. And the reason that's so important is because this information is going to exist all the way through the transaction, from the beginning to the end. If you have a trust, then you're going to put the name of the trustee here, but you do not need to include the value trustee. In fact, you don't want to here. It's the name of the person. Their role will be trustee, but that'll be later on. If you have somebody with a spouse situation where it's a husband and a wife, you don't want to enter both names into this field. You don't want to enter John and Mary Smith, because that's not a person, that's two people. So always create a contact for each person that you're going to be having sign a document. Because remember, at the end of the day, it's human beings that sign the documents. They sign in the place of a trust or in the place of a business, but it's a human being, so we need a name. I can't stress that enough because of the amount of times that I've seen it come through where it's not the name of a person. Okay. Now that we've discussed that, now let's talk about creating the opportunity on the right-hand side. The opportunity is going to connect to DocuSign. It's the opportunity that connects the person to the transaction and the transaction to DocuSign. So the opportunity is like the middleman that brings it all together. So that we click on opportunity here on the right-hand side in the activities area. Now, when we do that, we can see there's a create opportunity button right here, and it's right below the opportunities. And you can see that I've got 14 opportunities for John Morgan here. And right below that, I'm about to create a new one. The last opportunity I created was on March 22, and we're going to go ahead and create another one here right now. So I click on the create opportunity button. By default, we're going to see this little create opportunity dialog, and it's going to be based on you and how you are built in the market center, whether you're on a team, whether you're an individual. So I'm not going to go through all of the details here because we're going to cover this in week 3 of Command 101, which is going to be a couple of weeks from now. We'll go through this entire opportunity dialog box, and we're going to talk about everything here. So for right now, all we need to worry about is the opportunity type. The opportunity type is a drop-down, and we can choose listing, buyer, landlord, or tenant. So I'm going to choose listing, and I'm going to keep that there, and it automatically loads my client, John Morgan, and it gives me the option to load in a co-seller. Now notice that because I have the co-seller drop-down, it says, hey, there's a related contact for John Morgan, and it's Jackie Astuto. Would you like to use Jackie Astuto as the co-seller? Now, normally I would do this, but right now I'm going to leave it with one signer. And I'm only going to do this in the interest of time, but the same rules will apply for co-sellers as we go through here. The opportunity name is going to become the DocuSign room name. So make sure you pay close attention to what's in the opportunity name. Compliance here at the Market Center requires 3 components to make this work for you, and that is the who, the what, and the where. And we have 2 out of 3. We have who, John Morgan. The what it's an opportunity that is a listing, and the where is going to be 123. Well, if I can put the 3 in there, Main Street, and we'll say Epping, New Hampshire. Now, I always use that same one there just because it's nice and easy, and there's actually a transaction for this. But this is where we get the property address. So the who, the what, and the where. I say it 1,000 times to kind of drill it in your head so that you guys have this. Why? Because you'll be able to search later on for one of these names, John Morgan. You'll be able to search for all of your listings. You'll be able to search by address if you have it in here. All right. Next up, we're going to jump right down to the commission rate. I'll put 3% in here, and I'm going to go ahead and leave that without discussion. We're just going to go ahead and do that part here, and I'm going to click Create. Okay, the reason I didn't go into that is because in a couple of weeks when we go over the opportunities, we're going to talk about that in very, very deep detail in the Command 101 classes at 1 o'clock on Tech Tuesdays. All right, now that we have our transaction created, it is April 5th, 2022. Unbelievable how fast the time is going. Whew. Here we are, John Morgan, 123 Main Street, Epping, New Hampshire. So we're going to open that opportunity by clicking on it, and it's going to open it up for us in the Details tab of an opportunity inside of Command. So here we are. It's on the Details tab. Now, briefly here, the more information you have on the Details tab, the better, because all of this information plays into the DocuSign process. Much of this information gets transferred to DocuSign. And if you don't have it right now, you can synchronize this information later on. So for now, we want to put in as much as we can. So let's talk about this select from listings. Because we designated this transaction as a listing, we're going to need to define the listing for the transaction, 123 Main Street. Here's that address. Since I have it, I'm going to go ahead and copy it, and I'm going to click on Select from Listings. It brings up my dialog box, and since I'm not an agent, I will choose for showing all listings, and I will search for that address. When I do that, I've got 123 Main Street, Epping. Here is the MLS information. All of the MLS data is going to transfer over to DocuSign so that it's all done at one time. If you don't do this here, and if you don't do this now, you'll end up putting this stuff in manually. So why bother? Let the system do it for you. So I'll select here, and it loads into that listing slot, the listing and its information. So it puts everything together for me. It's got all the data about the listing, and that information will pass over to DocuSign. Now, again, we're going to go through this particular area in much more detail later on, so we'll just jump into the document area so that we can get to the DocuSign transaction. So I clicked on the Documents tab here, where we're going to be looking for the next couple of minutes, and in the Documents tab here, it says, to work with an opportunity, please select a checklist type first. And that's what it says right in the middle here. And it's referring to this button on the left-hand side, picking a checklist that this transaction is going to go by. What are the types of documents we need for this transaction? The checklist is going to tell us. So this is a New Hampshire listing. So when I look at the checklist options, I see that there is right at the very top a New Hampshire listing checklist for different types of listings for different states, or whether it's a buyer transaction or a construction transaction or a commercial or Vermont, you can pick the correct checklist. In this case, the first one is the one I want. So I'll click that. So now before we go any further here, we still have not connected the DocuSign room to this transaction. And what we're going to do next is that connection. But before we do, I want you to understand that what you're seeing here in the document checklist, none of these are actually documents. These are just placeholders where you're going to put signed copies of the document later. So the brokerage relationship form, you're going to put that into this little slot right on the right-hand side, and you're going to add that document to the list of documents that compliance is going to review. So for each of the documents listed in this checklist, the signed version goes over here on the right-hand side. There are required documents, and those are marked with the red required. There, if you slide down a little bit, you'll see some conditional documents. And when you hover over the little information icon for each of the conditional documents, it will tell you what the condition is and why you would need this document. So you ask yourself, how do I know? Hover above the little information icon, and if your transaction meets the needs or meets the statements there, then yes, that conditional document is required. If you're unsure, please reach out to the Market Center compliance officers or your broker, Jen Vashon or Jason Westcott, and they can give you a more clear direction on what conditional forms might be required when. Down at the very bottom of the page, we have a section for optional documents. If you want to keep your CMA with this transaction, if you want to keep all of your invoices and receipts, scan them into a PDF and put them in here. You want to keep copies of your emails. Not a lot of people do these, quite frankly, but they are there. If you want to keep some notes in here, maybe you've got some documents and notes that you've scanned, you can put that in there. Your team agreements, customer client contact information form. So taking a look at that one, this is an underutilized tool. So here is the customer client contact information form. Please have all customer client information listed below. So this one here is a required. So there you go. Name, phone address, all that stuff here is in there and ready to go. Okay. So there's some good stuff in here. And, if you go through, you might find that this will help keep you organized as well as in compliance with the required documents. Okay. So now that we have our checklist and we have everything ready to go, we're going to start our transaction in DocuSign. So to start our transaction, we come over here to the right-hand side. We do not go to DocuSign first. We create our transaction from right here on the Documents tab of the opportunity for the customer. Why? Because DocuSign is going to take all of the information that we've just put together and it's going to create the room in DocuSign based on this information, and it's going to load up all this goodness in there so you don't have to type it twice. So here we go. We're going to click on Start a Transaction. If you have loaded into your system the two integrations for DocuSign and .loop, you'll see the two options. If you've only got one or the other, you won't have that drop-down arrow. It will just start a transaction based on the single signing tool that you have connected. Mine has two, so I have a choice here of which one I'm going to use. So I'm going to choose DocuSign for this class. So I click on DocuSign in that drop-down, and now DocuSign is loading up. And it instantly puts 6 documents or 6 forms into my room, and they are partially filled out. Many of them are using the information that was transferred to DocuSign from the details area of the opportunity. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page in DocuSign because after a couple of seconds, the thumbnails visuals load up and you can see the content of the forms. Before that, you get a little kind of a blank thing. So always take a moment and refresh your page so that you can see the content. This will help you visualize which one of these documents you're going to work on. So each one of these documents or forms has a blue icon. And that blue icon, I'm going to switch to a list view by clicking the list view button up here in the right-hand corner underneath actions. And you can see that I can see the icon much bigger. So it says form. It's got a little blue form with little fields on it. This indicates that this is a DocuSign form. A form that was loaded from the DocuSign Forms library. What that means is this is an official form that was stored in the DocuSign library and pulled from that library and loaded into this room for you. So these little blue form icons always indicate that those documents or those forms came from the DocuSign library. Well, what is the DocuSign library? Well, that's an easy one. That's where we store all of the official documents. When I say official, what I'm referring to is that's where you're supposed to get your documents. If you have copies of them laying around on your desk at home, or if you've got them in a folder on your hard drive, that's not where you get your documents. You get your documents from this add button inside each room each time you need the document. So you click add, and then you click DocuSign Forms, or you click Zip Forms. Now I'll go over that in a moment, but for now, let's stick with DocuSign Forms. And when you click on DocuSign Forms, it's going to open up the official library for your Keller Williams documents for 463. This is what we refer to as our local market center required documents. Or you're going to see your NHAR, New Hampshire Association of Realtors documents. And these are the NHAR documents, and all of them begin with NHAR. These two libraries are searchable, so you can use the search dialog up here to find a document you're looking for. In each of these, you can do that. And these documents are the official documents to use. Now, I'm going to come back to this in a minute, so I'm going to cancel that dialog there. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, getting the documents in and looking at the documents and working with them, okay? So when we get these documents in, now how did these 6 get here? Well, remember when we were in Command and we saw these little green DS logos or little icons to the left of some of these documents. These DS indicators tell you that if you're using DocuSign, when you create a DocuSign room, these little marks indicate that those documents will already be loaded into the DocuSign room for you as soon as you create the room. Quick little tip for you, pro tip. If you create a DocuSign room and you don't see these 6 documents for a New Hampshire listing, you've done something wrong, because that means you probably created the room in DocuSign and not from Command. And we don't ever want to do that because those rooms are not connected. We need the room to be connected to the Command opportunity for this to work as smoothly as possible. When we do, we get all 6 of those documents and they're ready to go. Now, another point of interest here that you might find is that each of these documents, where necessary, information from the transactioning command is already loaded into any fields where that information might be required. So let's take this exclusive listing agreement form. And if I click on that, it's going to open that form up for editing. And what that means is for you as the agent to fill out any fields that the agent is allowed to fill out on a transaction. What that really boils down to is if you're allowed to fill this out as the agent, there will be fields available for you to type and enter data. Notice that, as I mentioned, there is a bunch of information that's already here. Here's our KW information about the company. There's the address of the property. The property has, because it's in the MLS, it has a contract amount, so that popped in automatically. So a lot of the information that is pre-populating from the details area is in fact already done. So all the way down at the bottom of the page, we can see here that those fields are filled out. The fields that you can fill out as the agent are available like via radio buttons or different fields where you can type values, whatever. So these fields where you can type in, that's what your role on this document is supposed to do, is fill that out. So as you go through this and fill it out, if you find that there's a field on this document, I'll come down here to the seller signature area and the date area. You'll notice that there's no fields for you to put your cursor in. That's because those are not for you to fill out. Those are going to be automatically prepared for signature and dates when we put this document into an envelope and determine who the people are who need to sign it. The system will take the slots here for seller 1, seller 2, seller 3, seller 4. It will take those slots and populate them with the people that we designate as the role of seller. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So after you've filled it all out the way you want to fill it out, you can save and close that, and it will retain that information for you. Now, that form is now ready, technically, to go out for signature. And I say that because we're making the assumption that you've filled it out and you have all the information in it. If that's the case, then you can right-click that form and create an envelope to put it in and send it off. Or you can click the checkbox in the upper left-hand corner, and then from the new set of tools and icons that you now see on the toolbar, you can click on Create an Envelope. Either way is going to put this document into an envelope. You can add multiple documents by putting multiple checkboxes on different documents, and all of those documents can be brought into one single envelope by clicking Create Envelope. So you can bring in one or more documents into an envelope to create them, okay? So now I want to pause here before we go into an envelope, and I want to talk about this adding button here for the forms from DocuSign. We talked about going into the library and finding the 463 documents and finding the NHAR documents. But there's another thing here for zip forms. Zip forms is a third-party tool, and if I click on this, it's going to ask you to log in to zip forms. And I don't have a zip forms account because I'm not a real estate agent. So I can't go beyond this to show you that. But if you do not have a zip forms account, you can come down here and either sign up at ZipLogix, or you can go to ZipLogix and find your account login information. So one of the things that's been happening lately, I'm going to leave this right here on the screen and have a discussion about why we would use zip forms and why we would use DocuSign forms and what's the difference. So zip forms is another electronic signing tool, but it's kind of a warehouse for authorized forms. It's the legal repository for getting forms. DocuSign also has those legal forms. So technically, you're getting the same forms from either DocuSign or zip forms for your use as a real estate agent. Now, when you are with us here at Keller Williams, you are automatically added into our DocuSign library or our DocuSign system. We refer to it just simply as under the umbrella of DocuSign, which means you don't really have to do anything except for create your account with your KW email and let us know what that is, which hopefully will be your KW, and boom, you have access to your forms. Now, one of the things that happens here is in certain states, for example, Maine does not allow the Maine state forms to be visible inside of DocuSign. You can't see the Maine forms. And to prove that briefly, if I come back to the add dialog and I go to DocuSign forms, you can see that the form libraries that I have are both based on New Hampshire. There's our local market center library, and then there's the NHAR. You don't see the Maine libraries. So you won't see the Massachusetts libraries. You won't see the Vermont libraries because DocuSign does not have authorization to get documents from those states and present them to you as an agent. So because of that, Zip Forms, who is the official distributor of those forms for those states, we allow it to connect here. So essentially, you can get those extra forms from those extra areas. Now, what that means is if you're in a different state, Maine or Vermont or Massachusetts, you can use Zip Forms to access those. Now, in some cases, though that rule is changing. So it's April 5th, 2022, and I'm telling you that you can access multiple states' forms from Zip Forms. Do not write that down as gospel because things are changing. So who knows what's going to happen in the future. But right now, Zip Forms are available through the connection here. Now, if you don't have your connection already in Zip Forms, let's talk about that. When you click on this Zip Forms button underneath the add dialog, it asks you to log in. Again, if you don't have that information, you can click on this button, sign up at ZipLogix. So what is ZipLogix or Zip Forms? How do they know who you are? Well, they're going to check to see if you're a realtor or if you're not a realtor, and you would have to purchase them if you're not a realtor. If you're a realtor, you can access your forms for New Hampshire and other states that you are licensed in and a member of the Board of Realtors in that state. So pay careful attention to what I just said. If you are licensed in a given state and you are a member of a Board of Realtors in that state, Zip Forms will have your forms available for you, okay? So you will need to make sure that those conditions are met. Licensed and member of a Board of Realtors. Any questions about being able to connect to Zip Forms, please direct them to our licensing director, Brittany Goodale, and she can give you, she can check for you to make sure that you are showing up and you have access to these tools. This is where I have to stop, because the only way for me to show you zip forms is to enter one of someone's account and look at it, because I'm not a realtor. So I don't have access to those forms. And that's kind of the whole point, is keeping people like me, the riffraff, out of those tools. Okay, so once you have those tools, and we're going to do a separate class on how to use zip forms in DocuSign, but I'll be doing it in a kind of a shared environment with an agent who has access. Once you have access to those forms, you can do the same things that we did in the library for the DocuSign forms. You would just go to zip forms and pull those documents accordingly. Okay. Now we're going to stay focused here on the DocuSign forms from here on out, and we're going to walk through the rest of the process so that we can get connected. Actually, let me do this before I leave and before I forget. We talked about the connection to zip forms. We talked about DocuSign. Up in the right-hand corner, there's a little picture of you up there, and that should either say KW or it should have a picture of your name. If you've been in DocuSign, you can make your profile, you can add a picture, and you can kind of make it look really nice. But in any case, you're going to see up in the upper right-hand corner your profile icon. Now, when you click on that, of course, there's the Manage Profile, which I'm not going to go into. What I'm interested in here is Preferences. And so I'm going to go through a couple of the preference settings for you here for DocuSign, especially for you new users who have not been in here before. We're going to go to Preferences, and we're going to take a look at what we have for options on the Preferences page. On the left-hand side, we have our profile that we can view, and we can click on the contact information here for how to get in touch with us. We have notifications, inbox details, and integrations. So let's start off with the contact information here. So when I click on the contact information, you can see here that I have the phone numbers for work, mobile, and a fax number if you need it, the address information, and that's pretty much it. So this is the contact information that you can enter into the system. Notice it does not include your email. So this is your phone number and your address and all that. And if we come down here to notifications, this is where you can set up the notifications for what you get informed of in DocuSign. Now, by default, you get a bunch of them. You may find that you don't need this much if you're in here all the time or something like that. So you can control your notifications from here. Next up is your inbox details. Now, this is a more advanced class, but essentially, I'm just going to tell you one thing here. DocuSign gives you a free email, and they populate it here for you with a default. I've changed mine to read r.vincent@mail.docusign.net. This means if you have somebody that needs to send you documents, you can have them sent directly to your DocuSign inbox, and then you can move them to the correct rooms later. This avoids getting your inbox in your regular mail cluttered with DocuSign objects that might get lost, because it can get pretty full in there. So this is a great way. If you want to, you can consider using this inbox and say all documents that people send you can be sent to this inbox, and then you can sort them out in DocuSign from there. It's kind of a neat little feature. Just in case you're wondering, up until about a month ago, DocuSign also gave you a free fax number. .loop still gives you a free fax number. DocuSign has discontinued the inbound fax to this DocuSign room structure. So you no longer have DocuSign's neat little fax tools. The last one down at the bottom, which is where I'm really headed here, is integrations. When you click on integrations, here is where you can connect your ZipForms account without having to go into a specific transaction. So you just click on the little arrow here, and it's going to bring up that same login box, allowing you to connect your ZipForms. Underneath that is DocuSign form settings. And this is an important one, believe it or not. It says company forms, providers, company forms, owners, me. What this is your access to that library of New Hampshire. In this case, we're looking at a New Hampshire DocuSign. All those legal forms that I told you are available to you as an agent. By clicking this little button here on the right-hand side to connect your forms, you can, actually clicking the add provider, I'm sorry, not the arrow. Click the add provider. What it's going to do is it's going to ask you for a forms provider. So we're talking about the National Association of Realtors forms, the NAR forms. This is what you're going to use here in New England. You're not going to use California, unless, of course, you're a California agent. There's Georgia, Oregon, and the Northwest. We are using the NAR. Once this is done and you've been validated by adding your NERDS number, and if you don't know what that number is, you can click on Find Your NERDS ID here, putting in your last name, and then adding the Board of Realtors for the state you're in. So as you can see, this is one long list. As a matter of fact, you probably can't even see how long the list is because it goes off the bottom of the page, both on Zoom and on Facebook. But it goes way, way down here and shows you a whole bunch of stuff, okay? So there is a lot of choices there, and you'll need to pick the right one. Once you're done, you'll click Validate, and now you have validated your access to your forms for your New Hampshire and NAR documents. There are other integrations. You can include other integrations for Dropbox, Google Drive, and Box. But remember, this is not the official form provider. This is just a place for you to store forms that maybe you use often and you want to have them stored there and then access them in Dropbox. It's kind of a neat little kind of tool to give you extra storage and an extra place to keep things. Okay, so that is the profile section there. And if you, one of the questions I just received recently was somebody wanted to change their email address for their profile. And you can do that in DocuSign as well. So you can do that in the My Profile section where you're updating your profile picture here. We can go and do a complete update. I'll wait for it to load so you can see it. So here is the profile with the email address. If you need to update your email address, you can do that here, okay? But in this section, one of the things that's kind of important for you guys to notice is this little time zone thing. I've seen recently where some people have had the wrong time zone in their DocuSign settings. So if you ever need to adjust that, you can come to your profile and set your time zone. Now, if you're cool, you're down in Brisbane, Australia, or maybe Perth or something like that. That'd be kind of fun. Get out of town for a little bit. But that's how you can change your email address, and you can change your time zone if you needed to. All right. So once that's all done, we can go back to our rooms area and we can take a look at the rooms list here. And we're going to go in right now and take John Morgan. We're going to go into John Morgan's room here. We have all the information on his details page. We're going to go back to the documents area and we're going to quickly run through sending a document for signature and receiving it back. So I'll take this exclusive listing agreement here. And once again, I'll click on it one time to open it up for editing as me, the agent, so that I can edit this document as needed. And anything that I need to add to this document, I can place in here. Once I do, I can go ahead and save and close that information, and boom, that information will be in there. Okay. So let me go back here just real quick, check on something. Yep. So that's the address. Yep. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and take that document and put it into an envelope. So I can put, again, like I showed you before, I can click the checkbox here, or I can right click this document and I can choose create envelope, or I can click the pen icon up here on the toolbar. I'll choose the right click method. It's nice and quick there. So what happens now is an envelope is created. Now this is the beginnings of the envelope. Now, if you think about quite literally a physical envelope, a manila envelope, you're going to want to put a label on the outside of the envelope so that you know what it is. And let's say that this is the exclusive listing agreement. Exclusive listing agreement. Okay, so that gives me the exclusive listing agreement as the name of my envelope. If I have multiple documents, I can use shorthand to kind of tell me what's in those or the reason that I'm sending it out so that I know later on when I'm looking at the list of envelopes, which ones are which. The document is in here already. And if I want to add additional documents that are already in the room, I can do that from this room documents One thing I want to warn you about, though, is as I mentioned a minute ago, we edit the documents in the details area. If you have not added all of the information required from you as the agent into a document, and you come here and you click add room documents, you will not be able to add additional information. So these are, as you can see, there's little PDF icons here. This is not something that we can edit in the envelope. So if the document is not completed already back in the documents area, you're not going to be able to complete it here. So if that's the case where you bring something in and you're like, nope, that's not the document I want to make sure that I bring in one that I can, I have to go make some changes, go make those changes in the details area, and then come back and bring the document in from there. Okay. Now that we've got one document, I'm going to leave it with one. Actually, you know what? I am going to bring a second document in here, and I'm going to bring in the property disclosure document. Let me do it one at a time. Hold on. Let's do it one at a time because I'll show you something here. So I have one document. I'm kind of throwing you off a little bit, but what I have is I have one document, the exclusive listing agreement. The only people that are going to sign this are the sellers, because what these people are going to do is they're going to agree to list their house with me. So it's not the buyers. The buyers are not involved. And so what that means is the people that are going to sign the form are going to be lined up with the people that are supposed to sign the form. So what we're going to do is on the add recipient, we're going to choose pre-tagged roles, which means the system is going to look for the people who are in the room, the seller, the buyer, the lister, all those people. And it's going to find out who is in the room with the designated role of seller. And then it's going to look at the document and it's going to say, okay, as per seller on the NHAR exclusive listing designated agency, who is the person who is going to be listed as the seller? So the recipient, and in this case, it's going to be John Morgan. Now, when we do that, it's not going to ask us really for anything else, even though there are multiple slots here for different people, seller 2 and listing agent. It's not going to ask for another name here because we don't have anybody else. But if we did have a seller 2 and we don't, we could pull in seller 2 here. And it does need a listing agent. So I put a check marks here and I say, well, the listing agent is Robert Vincent. So now I've got both of those. Let me make sure those loaded up because that's interesting. John Morgan. That's a little glitchy. Not quite sure why I did that, but I'm just going to go ahead and not worry about it and fill it in myself here. So it's going to pull in the names of the people and their role. It's not going to look at anything else. Now, that was for the exclusive listing agreement. Now watch what happens here. I'm going to click on the room docs button again. And this time I'm going to bring in the property disclosure. And I'm going to say that's one of the forms that I want to bring in. Now, remember, as I said, I can't edit this now. I can only look at it. But if it was all completed and ready to go, if I come down here now and I say add recipient, and I choose the same thing, pre-tagged roles, now you can see that there's actually 2 documents listed here. The exclusive listing agreement for seller 2, which there is none. Then the buyer 1 for property disclosure and buyer 2 for property disclosure. So depending on which documents you bring into an envelope, you'll need to make sure that you pick the right people to sign in the right place for each of the documents that are brought into the envelope. So just take your time when you're going through and you're bringing in people via pre-tagged roles so that you make sure you put the right person on the right document. And the documents are listed here as to whether or not there's going to be roles and people to sign them. Okay. So I'm going to leave it with just John. And I'm also going to take out this NHAR property disclosure because I don't need it for my demonstration. And I'm not going to send that to my signer because they're not going to end up signing it. So they wouldn't even see it. Okay. So what are we going to have people do here? Well, seller 1, John Morgan, needs to sign. So when I drop down that little arrow to the right of John Morgan here, it says John Morgan needs to sign. I can choose needs to view, receives a copy, specifies a recipient, or witness for signer. Generally speaking, most of us are going to be using needs to sign, or possibly needs to view, or possibly receive a copy. The other ones here are rare, but they are available. Specifying a recipient in the simplest of terms says you're going to send it to someone, and that person you send it to is going to identify the next person that they want to sign this document. You typically use that specify recipient when you do not know the name of that third person. If you know the name of the third person, then you can specify it here and send it to them. So this is only used when you don't know the name of the third person down the road. Okay. All right. So now that we have John Morgan and we have Robert Vincent, we can also specify. We also see that the two different numbers here. There's the same number, a number 1 and a number 1. This essentially means that both people are going to receive this document at the same time. So when they receive it, I will receive it, Robert, at the same time that John receives it. We can adjust that, do myself first or John first or whatever we want to do, and put some numbers. And if you have multiple people, you can specify the order. Keep in mind that if you specify an order, and let's say I send it to John first, and then I'm going to send it to someone else second, the second person and subsequent people will not receive this document until after the first person has completed all the activities required based on the fields that they need to fill out. So it could take a day, 2, a week, depending on how long each person takes to get the thing signed. It can be a little bit daunting doing that because you're basically at the mercy of everyone getting their signatures on documents. But you can set it up so that one person signs it and then it goes to the next person. Okay. Under message to all recipients, this is quite literally the subject and the email message that will be sent out to each person. Don't leave this with please DocuSign. That's really just basically rude because you're not really putting a message in there. That's just garbage. Put in something meaningful like, hi, John, please sign these documents and return them to me. And then in the email message, John, it was great talking with you today. Here's the documents we spoke about. Please sign them as quickly as possible. If you have any questions, reach out to me. That kind of thing. Make it personable. You know, you're representing yourself and you're representing KW here. So make it nice, make it professional, make it personal. Okay. Once you've got all that ready to go, you click on next. And in the next area here is where you can verify all of the signature spots, verify that all of the fields are filled out the way you want them. My document is basically empty here. So you can go through this entire process and you can bring in each of the people here by using their color codes and see exactly where they're going to need to sign. So for example, on this document, if I look over in little page thumbnails on the right-hand side, there's 2 colors, little sticky tabs. There's a blue sticky tab and a gold sticky tab, indicating that each signer in this room, John and Robert, are going to need to sign this document. So the signers are on the left-hand side in a little drop-down, and each has a color code. And for each page where they need to sign, you're going to see their little color codes. So I know that both people in this room on this document need to do something. And here's all the stuff in blue representing John, and here's the gold representing myself. So as I go through this and look at all the different parts of the document, now remember, I didn't actually fill this out because there's no need, because you'll know what you're going to do better than I do. When I get down to the bottom of the second page, it says, I need you to sign here, sign, and it will automatically add the date for you, sign and date it. If you want to preview it, you can by clicking the preview button in the upper right-hand corner to the just near the next button. And you can see exactly what this document is going to look like. There's the signature information that this will update according to when the signing party actually signs it. And then you've got your initials down here at the bottom and all the stuff. Okay. Now I'm previewing it right now as John, so I don't see any place where I need to sign it. So I can actually change that and say, show me the places where Robert needs to sign it. And the view is going to change. And it's going to say, all right, this is where Robert's going to need to sign. Is that in the right place? Yes, it is. Okay, great. So you can check your work here before you ever send it out to make sure that this is going to be the right document in the right place. Okay. All right. Now that we've done all of that, did you notice, by the way, that when I previewed for Robert Vincent, down at the bottom right-hand corner for the signature area, the date actually went off the page. So I see that. So let me go fix it. So I'll close this, and I'm going to take that date signed box and I'm going to move it to the left so that it lines up better. I might even go into the formatting and adjust the size of the font and the height of the font so that it fits more against where the date area is, and test it out via preview. And there, now I've got it sitting right on the line, right where it's supposed to be. Okay, so you have that ability to check to where things are, move them around if necessary, and adjust the sizes and all that. So you can do all of that inside this editing area prior to sending it out. Okay, since John needs to sign this thing, I'm going to go ahead and send it out. So I'm going to hit, oh, by the way, this happened just today. I was playing around in here, and they've got a new feature. So it's not a big feature, but it is a new feature, and it's worth explaining it. The button up here on the top and the button down at the bottom say send. So both of those will send this out. But there's a new drop down to the right of the send button, both on the top and on the bottom. And it is a send later option. And when you choose send later, you can specify that you want this document to kind of go out on a specific date and time. So if you're prepping a document and you don't want it to go out until Saturday morning or Friday morning, you can actually build in the send time for that document to go out automatically before you hit send, so that you don't have to remember to come back here and do it later on. So apparently that was a pretty hot request, because they added it and just kind of didn't even tell anybody, like, hey, here it is. You've asked for it. Here it is. So I'm going to use just the send, and I'm going to send it out right away. So I'll click the send button, and boom, off it goes. Okay. So for when you're watching on the screen there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to a different browser here. So I'm going to share, let's see, we'll go over here, and I want to make sure that that screen share is showing the right Chrome screen. There we go. All right, there we are. So now you see this little one here this is John Morgan's little personal account. So I've created a little email account for this one person, so I can show you the signature process. So this is exactly what John Morgan is receiving now. So it says, please DocuSign. By the way, there's that whole subject line, please DocuSign. That's just ick. Put something nice in there. The review document here, I didn't add anything special in the body. It says, John Morgan, please DocuSign this. Thank you. I could have been a little bit more personal, but I didn't. And by the way, that's why I say to make it a little bit more personal, because this is kind of ugly. So we'll review the document by looking at it the way John Morgan is going to see it. He's going to be required to authorize and click through. And if you haven't done one of these for yourself, please take the time to go through these documents and do a test signature. Do the whole thing, fill it all out as you would as the client, to see what they're going to experience. When that client is finished, they'll click finish. When they're done here, they don't need to enter their password and confirmation, stuff like that. This is only if you want the recipient, you would like to create a DocuSign account. They can safely click no thanks on creating an account, close that window, and then it will complete the signing process. So in their email, they will receive in a moment. If I go back here and refresh this and go back to the main, they're going to receive, it's a little slow, so it hasn't come through yet. But this is going to say that, thank you, this document is completed. So now let me switch back over now to show you the process of taking that envelope and completing it. So here is the return when we get back into DocuSign. This is what we as the agent see, where the envelope area is now visible. So that document has been sent, and we're now looking at the envelopes that we have sent, or the envelopes that are pending. So this document here, if I refresh this page, now remember, John has signed this, but it's waiting for my signature because I'm one of the signers on the document. To come into this envelope, you just click on the envelope name, and it will open up the exclusive listing agreement envelope, and it will tell you John Morgan has signed it. There's the signature information with the timestamp. And it says here, the listing agent needs to sign. Now, because you're the listing agent, you don't need to go check your email because you can sign it right from here. So inside the envelope, you can click the sign button and it will prepare your document just as if you had gone through your email and gone through the whole process, but you'll just click continue here, start the signing process. And in this case, it's just a couple of initials with the date, which is automatic, and you can click finish. Once you're done with your signing portion of the document, it's going to, once again, it's going to take you back to the envelopes area. It says you've successfully signed it, but remember, it still says waiting for others. It may take a moment or a few for this to complete the signing process. And there it is. By the time I clicked into it, it said that this one was completed. So if I go back a page and I refresh this now, it should say completed. There's the green. Now that the documents are completed, we can go back to the documents area and we can see that in the documents area, we have now a signed green copy as a PDF. And we also have a red PDF, which indicates a certification. But the most important document we need is this green signed one. So this one here is ready to go back to command. And very simply, you guys, you don't need to do anything here. DocuSign has done all its part. All we need to do is tell command, hey, the document is signed and here it is in command. To do that, we go back to command. In command, I'm going to refresh the page here, which is, we haven't changed anything. We're still on the documents page in command. And in the sense of this exclusive listing agreement, we're connected to DocuSign. It says attach files from DocuSign up here. All we need to do is tell command which folder those documents are in. And in this case, they're in the Room Docs folder. So if I go back to DocuSign and I'll switch it over to List View, and you can see that there is one folder in this room, Room Docs. All of the documents are in that folder, including the NHAR designated agency document signed. And it's already marked as signed. So in command, all I have to do is come back here and say, get from the room document area, the exclusive listing agreement. Where is it? You click the select button and you're looking for the exclusive listing agreement designated agency signed. Notice that you only see two documents here. You see a certification and you see what we're actually looking for, which is the designated agency. If I go back to DocuSign, I've got all these documents in here, but none of those are visible. The only two that are visible are the signed document and the certified document. That is because forms are not ever going to leave DocuSign. They're trapped in here forever. They never get to see the light of day. The only time that these forms leave DocuSign is in another format, a PDF. And that's what this is. It's a PDF that you can print right from here, or you can download or do whatever. But the forms are converted to PDFs before they leave. You never actually get to take a form out of the DocuSign library, which means command doesn't see anything but the type of format or the type of document that it can read. So here is the NHAR listing designated agency, and you are done. At this point, you could send the document in for approval, for submission to the Market Center, but you're essentially done. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the introduction to DocuSign. So everything that we've done so far here, very simply, was we created a contact or used an existing contact, created an opportunity, went into the opportunity, completed all the information, created the DocuSign room, went into the DocuSign room, filled out all the data, sent out the forms for signature, got them back, and then brought them back into command using the drop downs and the pull through here. Once that's done, everything's in good shape. There's a lot of nuances that we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks as we go forward in this course. But for now, we'll stop here. And if you have any questions, you of course can reach out to me and let me know. And anybody have any questions now before we go? John? And we've got Karen as well.
Yeah, I got a fast question. What do you have planned for Command 301 today?
Command 301 is smart plans.
Smart plans? Oh, great.
Yep.
I'll be there.
All right. Karen, how you holding up?
I'm good. I just jumped on because I thought you would talk about some of the glitches because I'm good with everything that you showed, but I had a couple glitches last weekend and then again this weekend. And I thought maybe you would mention them, but maybe nobody else had them. I was working on an offer on Saturday and the buyers weren't ready to confirm the pricing. So I had it in draft. And Sunday, after I discussed with them in the morning to finalize, I went back in and a lot of the information was wiped out, like the seller's names, both the seller's names, both the buyer's names. Some of the information was left, and I didn't understand what was going on, why that happened. And then I keep having a glitch with the abbreviation NH that I've worked on my own workaround, but I wasn't sure if you were going to mention that today. And then rate on air and rate on water. I have never been able to check those boxes off myself. I have to put the box in for the recipient and ask them, just click those boxes for me.
2 out of 3 of those things, Karen, we've become aware of in the past couple of days. The missing information and the radon box specifically. The other one, not quite sure what's going on there. But reach out to me separately. I'll add your name to the list of people that are experiencing that, and hopefully we can get a resolution. Keller Support down in Texas is aware of them, and we're working to get those resolved.
Okay.
Alrighty.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, you guys, that's going to wrap it up here. Thank you all for joining me, both on the Facebook group feed as well as here in the Zoom room. Today at 1 o'clock, we're going to be doing the restart of the Command 101 for the month. So Command 101 is going to be going over the just overview of the product and showing new users how it works and what it's all about. And at 301, as John and I just discussed a moment ago, we're going to be going over the smart plans and focusing on understanding how they work. We're not going to be building one. We are going to build one. We're going to make it nice and simple, but I'm going to be focusing on the philosophy behind them, when to use them, how to use them, and how they work. So thank you all very much, and we'll talk to you guys in a little bit.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Bye-bye.